Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so this is part two. I guess I didn't finish some of the sentence or some of the questions. Hopefully, I can wrap some of this stuff up, but this is part two as to the ghost story. So, and this is literally right after I was just on live and I heard a knock at the door. It was like, and it stopped me mid sentence. I mean, mid sentence because I heard it clear as day. Anyway, so the reason I moved out, duh, because you guys know I was there for a few months. Everybody's asking, tell us where it is. What's the location? Where's the address? Was it in San Antonio? What side of town? Let me tell you, I am really good with direction, extremely good with direction, but this is back in my 20s. I'm not 20 anymore. This is a long time ago. You could have understood if you understood Craigslist, but let me also tell you this. I can't remember. I've sat down and talked to my best friends, and I was like, maybe if I drive around, it'll trigger the memory. I can't remember where it is. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it was. Somebody asked me if I was referred to this house. I wasn't. I looked it up on Craigslist. And so anyway, we were at the house. Remember I told you that when you walked in, to the left was the living room, to the right was the restroom, and then right next to that, because the restroom wasn't inside the room, to the left was the room. Well, a lot of stuff was starting to happen, and more stuff started to happen. And I noticed that the reason I really left one night was, and it was in the middle of the night. I had already talked to the landlord and I had said, hey, I'm really uncomfortable. And she was like, well, a lot of people don't last here that long. And I was all, okay. And I was like, do you want to explain why? And she didn't. So I get it. She didn't have to tell me. She didn't have to say anything to me. And I can tell that she wasn't going to tell me. Well, one night I was late at night, and it was, those nights that you're exhausted, but you can't sleep. You want to go to sleep and you're like, oh, I just want to go to sleep, please. The next day I was off. So I had plans to go like grocery shopping, do the regular schmegler stuff. Well, that night it was late at night, and I remember it was silent because I like to have my room dark. I mean, I don't want any light coming in because that's how I can't sleep with any light, not even a clock, nothing. Like if it had a little dim, I can't sleep like that. Well, so the room is pitch dark. And then I suddenly hear, here, let me show you. I suddenly hear this. Now, the wall that separates the room to the living room, that wall that's adjacent to it, that's all I'm hearing over and over. So I thought to myself, I'm trying to justify everything in my head. And I'm thinking there's rats, it's an old little house, something. No. So then it stops. It completely stops. And I thought, oh, okay. It was probably just a rat. Was it the land, they're asking? I think it was the land and not the place. And the reason I say this is because that same day, I had gone outside and I should have known. I saw somebody walking and I thought, this is so weird. Why is somebody walking through here? There's nothing around here. And I saw him walking, but I didn't think anything of it. He stared, and I politely was like, good morning. And he just stared and stared at me. That was the same day as the night that I'm talking about. And he stared at me like where he turned his head, not his whole body, just his head, and just stared directly at me. And I was like, good morning. And nothing. And then as I quickly turned to like get my coffee, like, cause I was grabbing my coffee to drink to like see where he's going, I didn't see him anymore. It creeped me out, but the way the road was, because that's what I can remember is the way the road was is that you can see everything. It's not like if there was trees or grass, there wasn't all that, bushes, there wasn't any of that. You can just directly see that there was nothing else. And I was all, where'd he go? So I got a little creeped out, went back inside, didn't think anything of it after that. I locked all the doors, locked the windows, everything was fine, so I was okay with it. Didn't think anything of it until later on that night, after I heard the like scratching of the wall. It stopped, and I thought to myself, okay, it's nothing, Jose. You're just freaking yourself out. This is nothing. You know how I told you I would hear the footsteps? And like it was the footsteps were getting louder and louder. Well, that night I started hearing somebody walking back and forth from the kitchen to the living room, and in like a stomping motion. It was like dum 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 dum. And the only reason I know it was starting to get worse and worse every single time was because when I turned to look at you know how I told you I sleep in the dark, all the lights were off, kitchen, everywhere. The light turned on, and I want to say it was in the kitchen because it wasn't as bright, the one in the living room. So the light turns on out of nowhere. And then I see at the very bottom of the crack of the door, I can see footsteps, the shadow of footsteps. Couldn't really see anything. I see the shadow of the footsteps, and it just stops right in the middle of the door. My heart is racing. I'm getting up, but I don't have anything like to protect myself. I'm scared. All I keep thinking is, if I have to, I will leave through the door. Sorry, I got a call, so it messed up. This is my second attempt trying to do this video. Okay, so I can see the footsteps at the front of my door, right? Which is connected to the living room. And it's just there. And I thought, who's there? Who's there? And so, I mean, my voice is yelling, who's there? And I'm telling them, I have a gun. I didn't have a gun. I didn't have anything. I said, I have a gun. Ouch. But really, in reality, I didn't have a phone either. This was back in the day. We just didn't have, if you didn't have a house phone, you didn't have a phone. And I remember I just said, you know what? I have to make it to the back. I've got to, because there's a door that's connected, that's in the main bedroom that leads you outside. And I thought, that's it. I've just got to go. I was going to go the way I was dressed. But I start making it to the door, and as soon as my hand gets to the knock, to the lock, I turn it, and the door starts shaking furiously. I mean, it's like, I mean, there's no noise, but it's just shaking. You would have thought I was in a tornado. That's how hard it was hitting. And of course, my heart is pulsing in I mean, I can't breathe. You know, when you can't talk either, and you have like a ball in your throat. And I thought to myself, I'm not going through that door. I've got to make it to the front. I don't know how, but I've got to make my way. I'm going to get hurt if I stay in this house. So of course I take off. I go through the main door, and I open my door to the room, and I start booking it. I mean, I take off, and this is why I don't think it was the house. I think it was the land itself, because you remember that when I told you earlier that I saw that guy, he was all the way in the front of the house by the dirt road, and I still don't remember where it is. Still to this day, I was talking to my best friends, and I was like, I don't know where this house is, and that's okay, because I don't want to know anything about it. I'm not going to look it up. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want anything connected to this house, so I will not look it up. So sorry if I don't have that answer for you. So I make it to the front, and I turn to see the house just to look at it, because I'm worried, you know, what if it's all in my head? The lights are flickering from each room. I mean, you can just see boom, 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 boom. The lights are on and on and off. And I could tell, I was like, that's it. I am done. I'm never coming back again. I didn't have a lot to my name anyway. So I was like, that's okay. Just leave it. You know, when you move into a place, you want to decorate it. That's how I am. I want to decorate and do everything, but I didn't. I was like, I'm done with this house. As I stood there for a few seconds to look at the house, I heard this in my ear. And it was so scary and growling. It was frightening. I left. I never talked to that lady again.